For centuries, warfare has been seen as the domain of men, with battlefields echoing with the stories of kings, conquerors, and generals. But history tells a more complex tale. Scattered throughout the chronicles of conflict, there are extraordinary women who defied the expectations of their eras, taking command of armies and leading their people to victory against overwhelming odds. These women, often underestimated, always determined, changed the course of their nations and left legacies that endure to this day. Throughout the ancient and medieval world, military leadership was almost exclusively the prerogative of men. Power, both on and off the battlefield, was ring-fenced by patriarchy. Women were seldom accorded the authority to lead, let alone to command troops in the chaos of war. When female leaders did emerge, they faced skepticism, resistance, and often outright hostility. Yet in moments of crisis, when nations and peoples stood on the brink, a handful of remarkable women shattered convention, seized the mantle of command, and led their forces to triumph. Their stories are not just tales of military prowess, they are chronicles of resilience, cunning, and courage. Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orleans, stands as one of history's most iconic female warriors. In 15th century France, with the nation on the verge of collapse under English invasion, Joan rose from obscurity, claiming divine guidance and a holy mission. At barely 17, she persuaded a skeptical heir to the French throne to grant her command. Donning armor, she rallied dispirited soldiers and led them in a fateful siege to lift English occupation from Orleans. Against all odds, under her leadership, the French broke the siege, turning the tide of the 100 Years' War. More than a battlefield commander, Joan of Arc was a symbol of hope, a peasant girl who inspired an entire nation to believe again. Her presence transformed the morale and resolve of her followers, compelling commanders and soldiers alike to risk everything in pursuit of victory. Even after her capture and tragic execution, her legend endured, cementing her as a national heroine and one of the most celebrated military leaders in history. Centuries earlier, on the misty Isles of Britannia, Queen Boudica of the Iceni became a symbol of defiance against imperial might. Following the death of her husband, the Roman Empire attempted to erase the Iceni kingdom, brutally abusing Boudica and her daughters. In response, Boudica united disparate British tribes, forging a rebel army to take on the most powerful military machine of her time. Her forces swept through Roman settlements, capturing and burning major cities such as Colchester, London, and St. Albans. Despite lacking the resources and discipline of Rome's legions, Boudica's charisma and indomitable will galvanized thousands to her cause. Her campaign rocked the very foundations of Roman Britain. Though ultimately defeated, Boudica's audacity and tenacity forged her legacy as a freedom fighter, a ruler who refused to bow to tyranny and inspired generations to come. Across the desert sands of the 3rd century Middle East, another queen carved her name into military lore: Zenobia of Palmyra. After her husband, King Odenathus, was assassinated, Zenobia assumed regency for her young son. But she was no mere caretaker. Zenobia quickly seized command, launching a campaign that expanded the Palmyrene Empire across Egypt, Anatolia, and large swaths of the Roman East. Leading from the front and riding with her troops, she outmaneuvered rivals and defied Roman authority, creating one of the greatest threats the empire had known. Zenobia's ambition was matched by her intellect. Fluent in several languages and a patron of culture, she fused military prowess with diplomatic savvy. Even after her eventual defeat and capture by the Romans, Zenobia's rule stands as a testament to her vision and capability. A woman who built an empire and rewrote the rules of power in the ancient world. Far to the east, in the heart of colonial India, Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi rose against an empire at the age of 22. When her kingdom was threatened with annexation by the British, Lakshmibai refused to surrender her land or her people's independence. Strapping on armor and mounting her horse, she led her troops through the streets and ramparts of Jhansi, rallying both men and women to her side. Her tactical brilliance confounded British forces, allowing her to hold off sieges and launch daring sorties. Even when her fortress fell, Lakshmibai fought on, escaping to continue her campaign of resistance until her last breath on the battlefield. Her courage and determination transformed her into a symbol of India's fight for freedom. her legacy living on as an inspiration for generations seeking justice, equality, and national pride. Traveling back in time to first-century Vietnam, we meet not one but two formidable leaders, the Trung sisters, Trung Trac and Trung Nhi. Born to a noble family under oppressive Han Chinese rule, the sisters rallied dissatisfaction into open rebellion. With vast numbers of men and women answering their call, the sisters led their forces across the Red River Delta, seizing more than 60 fortresses and toppling Chinese authority. For over 3 years, they ruled northern Vietnam as queens, establishing a new era of autonomy and governance by their own people. The Trung sisters became cultural icons, celebrated for their courage and for demonstrating that women could lead as resolutely as men, even in the face of crushing imperial force. Their rebellion, though eventually overrun, ignited a flame of resistance that burned long after their deaths, shaping the identity and spirit of Vietnam. Across these stories and eras, what unites these women is not merely their capacity for command, but their exceptional courage to claim power in a world that denied it to them. Each faced not just enemies on the battlefield, but doubters and detractors within their own ranks. Each had to convince societies structured to exclude them that they deserved to lead. In doing so, they redefined what was possible for women and for their nations. The impact of these women's leadership rippled through history. Joan of Arc's victories paved the way for the survival of France as a nation. Boudicca's uprising forced Rome to reconsider their governance of Britain, and her legend inspired new generations of rebels. Zenobia's empire left a lasting mark on the cultural landscape of the Middle East. Rani Lakshmibai's defiance became a rallying cry in the Indian independence movement. The Trung sisters' legacy permeates Vietnamese identity and pride. Their names endure not merely as legends, but as proofs that leadership, bravery, and vision know no gender. Let's remember their stories and draw inspiration from their courage. In today's world, where barriers still exist and leadership is still contested terrain for women, their legacies challenge us to envision a future shaped by equality and determination. Let their triumphs remind us that the capacity to lead and to change history belongs to all. Now is the time to honor their memory by supporting and empowering new generations of women leaders, on battlefields, in boardrooms, and wherever courage is called for.